in a move that's expected to strengthen Trump's control of the Republican Party, served 17 years as Republican leader. I wanted to talk about his record. He said he plans to finish as senator. During his leadership, McConnell successfully blocked voting on Democratic bills from gun control to election integrity, ramming through Republican priorities, including Trump's $2 trillion tax cuts for corporations and the wealthiest Americans, helped Trump stack federal courts with far-right judges, reverse the 60-vote threshold for confirming Supreme Court justices, allowing Trump to install 3 right-wing justices on the bench a few years after stonewalling President Obama's Supreme Court justice pick.
So that part about the number of changing the rule that, you need 60 votes to confirm. Let me take that back. That was very, very consequential. They wouldn't have been able to do it without that.
For corporations and the wealthiest Americans, helped Trump stack federal courts with far-right judges, reverse the 60-vote threshold for confirming Supreme Court justices, allowing Trump to install 3 right-wing justices on the bench a few years after stonewalling President Obama's Supreme Court justice pick, Merrick Garland. It's absolutely amazing what happened, saying when Scalia died. I want to play a clip of McConnell himself talking about why Merrick Garland would not be able to have a hearing before the election the following November.
It's been more than 80 years since a Supreme Court vacancy arose and was filled in a presidential election year. And that, Mr. President, was when the Senate majority and the president were from the same political party. The same political party. It's been 80 years. Since we have divided government today, it means we have to look back almost 130 years to the last time a nominee was confirmed in similar circumstances. That's back when politicians like mugwumps were debating policies like free silver, and a guy named Grover ran the country. Think about that. As senators, it leaves us with a choice. Will we allow the people to continue deciding who will nominate the next justice? Or will we empower a lame duck president to make that decision on his way out the door?
Okay, now, what a load of crap this guy was saying. Are we going to allow the American people to choose who's going to be on the Supreme Court justice? Or are we going to allow a lame duck president to choose who's going to be on the Supreme Court? Like, okay, the executive branch is the one that makes appoints who's going to be on the Supreme Court, and the American people votes for who's going to be the president. So the president representing the people appoints the person to be on the Supreme Court. So he was playing with those words in a way that made it seem like it wasn't the American people's will to have President Obama choose who's going to be on the Supreme Court, simply because it was a conservative judge who passed away, and we knew that Obama was going to appoint a liberal one. Comments?
Well, like I said before, I do believe that it was some bullshit where, he allowed them to take the stance that they did. I would have sued them because, like, I'm president. If I'm supposed to be able to, within my term, appoint people to this office, that office, whatever, and you're blocked because this person is not good, but because I only have a year left, like there's people who nominated justices decades ago that's still here, so why can't I do the same? It doesn't add up to me, but
shady, and that's how we got where we are today with Roe versus Wade being overturned.
And
diversity, equity, and inclusion being taken out, freaking affirmative action being taken out, and who knows how many more are they're gonna do.
it's taken out of what? Because I don't know any jobs that's taking it out. Maybe some schools have, but you know, the whole
They
world
no
didn't get
longer
rid of
have
it.
to be. It was a law, so you could be held accountable for not, having diversity, equity, and inclusion. So yeah, a company can choose to do it on their own if they want to, but if they don't want to, they don't have to worry about any legal
Well, no,
repercussions.
now if I'm not mistaken, the whole idea was like this was so that you know, for schools. This is mostly for schools because it's supposed to be by merit. If you know, a better
It's not
student,
just
if
schools, it's jobs, it's everything. It's literally everything. It impacts everything.
I mean, I hear you. I haven't seen the evidence of it, but I'm just telling you that I remember it being mostly because of, you know, being able to doing that in schools. Well,
And
and that's
I saw a post recently where they were like, Florida universities close the diversity, equity, and inclusion office and lays off all of the people who worked in that office or whatever. And I saw that multiple times, and I was like, I was thinking about it, and I was like, they did the same thing here in Texas because at my school, University of Houston, they did the same thing. They closed the diversity, equity, and inclusion office, and all the people that work there no longer work there. So, and they did that months ago. So it's weird to me how Florida gets, the one that they want to cover in the media about this stuff when you have other states that's doing the same thing, but Florida gets to be the poster child of it. You know, shady things happen in Florida, especially related to education, but that's not the only state is what I'm trying to say is that, it's weird that I don't see any media covering Texas doing the exact same thing. It's part of the narrative of Florida that the media likes to keep on going and saying. But it's not just Florida, it's Texas, it's other states too, doing the exact same thing.
That was 2016. Meanwhile, September 2020, Senate Democrats slammed Senate Majority Leader McConnell for rushing to fill Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat so close to the November election, holding hearings on the nomination of the conservative federal judge Amy Coney Barrett. When early voting had already begun in some states, she was confirmed a week before Biden's election. Senator Merkley, your assessment of McConnell's tenure?
So if they would have followed the same thoughts about Obama and being a lame duck president on his way out, even though he nominated this guy like early in the last year, and then you had Trump nominate Amy Coney Barrett literally on his way out the door, it would have been Biden who would have put that other judge in, and then you still would have had a different makeup of the Supreme Court. It still would have came out to be the same that it would have been if Obama would have put Merrick Garland in there. If that makes any sense, what I'm saying, it would have balanced out, but the shadiness, like if they would have just stuck to what they said before, the balance would have been better.
Yes, back in the mid-1990s when Gingrich was shifting strategy on the House side, and that shift in strategy was to say, rather than cooperate with the majority to get some things into bills, we'll basically obstruct them as much as we can and then argue that their failures mean they should be replaced. And it proved to be an effective strategy. McConnell said, Gingrich gives obstruction a good name. But in the Senate, he had tools Gingrich could never have dreamed of. He had the nomination process, which every objection to closing debate means a nomination could take a week. So he could really slow things down. And then he had the 60 vote requirement for closing debate. And if you flip the math, it means that in the minority with 41 votes, you can paralyze the Senate on policy bills. And he used that in an aggressive strategy, and he used it on nominations, and he really brought obstruction to be the premier tool of the minority, arguing the more you obstruct, the more you make the case for the majority to be replaced by the minority. I really thought when I first heard this was.
So yeah, obstruction is their greatest tool, and that's part of the reason why we've this past session we had the least amount of stuff get done by Congress like in history. You know, it's paralyzed by this obstruction, and it's crazy because it's only the extreme minority that are doing this obstruction, you know, keeping things from getting done. And that's the reason why they say the government can't do anything. So it's kind of like that argument, like with the schools, where they say, you know, the schools don't work or whatever, you know, they make it not work. So then they can say that it doesn't work. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So that's what they're doing in the government. Like this is their playbook now, is to, you know, use obstruction to make things not work so they can say, you know, they're not working and we need to get those people out of there. They're not getting anything done. Well, they're not getting anything done because you got a small majority who is obstructing everything that comes up.
It was just so absurd. And the American people would see it and understand it and reject it and penalize the minority for using obstruction in this fashion. But I was wrong. It turned out to be an incredibly effective strategy because the American people hold the majority accountable. They're like, if you've got a problem with getting things done, solve that problem. You are in charge. And so his legacy has been one of obstruction. And it has been one in which he has used the most convenient argument of the moment in order to make power moves on behalf of the Republican Party, to make the first time in U.S. history that the Senate didn't debate a nominee. The very first time, I called it the stolen seat. And when Obama nominated near the end of his term, and then proceed to change the rules for the Supreme Court, and in exact contravention of the argument he'd made just prior. So it was an argument of the moment, no consistency except the strategy of obstruction of Democrats and power moves for Republicans.
So these people have no real character. They don't have any real integrity. They don't really stand on their square. Like they just want to get the things done that they want to get done by any means necessary. Integrity, all be damned. Truth, all be damned. You know, and this is where we are. And it's really sad when the American people can't see through the bullshit, or they choose to roll with it just because it's their team, you know. And so we suffer as a result, you know, because we've got all of these cases coming down. You know, some real serious stuff is coming into the Supreme Court now. For this time, they're finna vote on some more stuff that's really serious, and the impact of this stuff is going to be 50 years down the line, as far as like how long it's going to go and how can it be undone, you know, maybe even longer, because these Supreme Court justices, they don't have an expiration date. They basically die to lose their seat. Like, you know, they that's another problem. Like I think if like how they changed the rules about the number of people that it takes to confirm a Supreme Court justice, they need to change the rules related to how long a Supreme Court justice stays in there. Like they're in there indefinitely.
I guess term laws, and also I guess you can be even if you, I guess they have to be replaced, but no, I agree with that. You know, not with just the judicial, but even legislative as well. Like I think that they should be pushed out. Or, I mean, there's no maximum. Like you can just go back and serve again. No, I don't think that's right.
And that's how this is how we got where we are today. And I don't think people realize the significance of this and how much the legacy of Trump's first term is the courts. His 3 Supreme Court justices that he put on there and the hundreds of judges was appointed in smaller courts across the nation. This dude has had a major impact on the legislative, the judicial branch of government. So you have these Make America Great ultra conservatives in charge across the nation in the judicial branch of the government. And it wouldn't be a big thing. Like, it wouldn't matter really but these people represent the minority of Americans. Like, the views of these people are not supported by the majority of Americans. And these people have huge say on what happens. You know what I mean? How these laws are being interpreted, and they can interpret them through their lens of ultra conservatism. Like, even the conservative folks, even the Republicans, a lot of them do not agree with these extreme views that these folks have. And that's how we get to the point where we are, where they're trying to put like the 10 Commandments in the classrooms and just a lot of craziness that, really extreme, and it's like we're going backwards because a lot of this stuff was supposedly put to bed years ago. They're coming for voting rights. All of the stuff that happened in the civil rights era, they're undoing all of this stuff because these are the same people. They were alive then too, and they were not happy with the stuff. They wasn't happy with integration. They wasn't happy with the Voting Rights Act. They wasn't happy with all of these diversity, equity, and inclusion, all of this affirmative action. They wasn't happy with this stuff, and they've been trying to undo that since then. And with Mitch McConnell and Trump, they've got the opportunity to undo that stuff now. And so the impact on the American people, the impact on our government, the impact on like how things work now, the direction that we're going in is as a result of this stuff. That's the reason why I wanted to cover this, because I really don't think people understand the significance of this. Like, all the stuff that's going on in the news, what, most people are fighting against, that they don't agree with, is as a result of this stuff.
For the power moves, I'm sure much of the Republican Party appreciates him for the Supreme Court does, but it has done incredible damage to the institution of the Senate and incredible damage to the institution of the Supreme Court.
And are you concerned that?
So yeah, that's where another part of this is the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. How a lot of people don't feel that the Supreme Court, power is legitimized. And one of the reasons why people don't, besides the corruption that's going on, the money and the bribes and stuff, besides that, the makeup of the Supreme Court behind Mitch McConnell not allowing Merrick Garland to be put in and then rolling Amy Coney Barrett into there is another reason why people feel like the Supreme Court is illegitimate. And it would justify people trying to find a way to get it balanced out by, other ways like increasing the number of judges, which has happened historically. It's been a long time, but it has happened before. That's how we ended up with the number that we have today. But, one way to try to fight against that is to increase the number of Supreme Court judges. And I really wouldn't be surprised if we see movement in that direction soon. Because the people need to have confidence in the Supreme Court. People need to feel like they're impartial, that they're not partisan. You know what I mean? That they're actually making decisions based on, the Constitution, based on the law, and not based on their own personal religious beliefs. If people don't feel like the courts are legitimate, then why follow any laws at all? Because you feel like the laws are unjust and don't represent the will of the people. So that's where you get to this point where you can lead to like total chaos, Mad Max. Why follow the law? Why pay your taxes if you have a bunch of people who don't pay their taxes? Use loopholes. Why should I pay my taxes if these other people don't pay their taxes? Why should I follow the law if these other people are not following the law? Why should I not be corrupt when all my leaders are corrupt, getting paid on the side?
That the person who replaces him will be even more extreme. Word is it's going to be one of the three Johns who always stand behind him. Senators John Thune of South Dakota, John Cornyn of Texas, and John Barrasso, perhaps the most MAGA of Wyoming.
There's a lot of things to worry about, but some things are completely out of my control. So I'll just wait and see what happens. And that certainly is the case in the selection of the Republican leader.
We're speaking with Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley, who's authored a new book with his chief of staff titled Filibustered: How to Fix the Broken Senate and Save America. This is Senator Merkley holding a filibuster-like session overnight back in 2017, speaking for more than 15 hours in protest of the Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch's nomination.
And to confirm anyone but Merrick Garland to this seat confirms the Senate as the thief who took the seat for the first time in U.S. history and transported to another president in an effort to pack the court.
So, Senator Merkley, if you could talk about your book just out last month.
Yeah, so I'm going to move on. But yeah, that is the stolen seat. And that is the packing of the court. And they did it in shadiest ways, Now, and that's the main thing that people should focus on. The corruption is secondary to this. You got a case that's coming up related to January 6th, and a lot of people feel like Clarence Thomas should recluse himself from that particular case because his wife is connected to that case. Text messages, her influence related to January 6th. And, they're talking about changing the sentences of the people who were found guilty related to January 6th. All of this stuff.
The same way they did the Bible.
The Bible.
They changed different words. They said, people said, like, I'm just saying, like, that's to me the same kind of thing. Like, they're going in and they're changing. They're not like something that was original worked or whatever. And they go back and they change it for what is potentially selfish reasons. And, I mean, that's just kind of how I see that.
Yeah, well, I think that case related to January 6th, Clarence Thomas should recluse himself, but he's not. And because, the results of it is probably would be changed without his vote.
January 6th?
Yeah, there's a case coming up to Supreme Court related to January 6th.
Why should he recuse himself? I don't understand. Why should he recuse himself?
because of his wife and her impact and involvement in January 6th.
I don't think it's the same thing, but okay.
Let's read a couple comments. It says, he and Graham are a disgrace. Another one that says, good riddance, Mitch, you should have been gone. Another one that says, the president can only serve 2 terms. I believe there should be term limits for all branches of government and judicial systems. So, yeah, and earlier you was talking about how long Mitch McConnell has been in there, and you were saying that, you know what, his people don't have another choice to choose from, but it's just the kind of the way it goes. The incumbent always has an advantage, especially in those Senate seats. You know, once you win, then now you've been in there. Their terms are like 6 years. So the people get used to seeing their face and their name on everything or whatever. And, you know, when the election comes back around, they just automatically vote for the incumbent. So once you become a senator,
A familiar name. That's why I think a lot of people go by as
name recognition. So you have a very good chance of continually getting reelected. Look at what's his name? The dude from Texas, Cruz. I think a lot of people here in Texas don't really like Cruz, but he keeps on getting reelected. He's been in there for a minute.
Well, I think he keeps getting reelected, not because I mean, there's enough people that do know about him and realize like they can go and check his record and it's been consistent. Like that's one of the things that people overlook. I mean, he's an asshole maybe, but at the same time, like he votes and he stands on what he's always stood on. There ain't no shaky, rocky position between
I think
him.
it has more to do with the way the system works. You know, a minority of people can get this guy in, you know, over the majority, and it just works, especially here in a state like Texas, where, you know, it's like a religion to be Republican. Like you can't vote against the Republicans here in Texas. Your family is gonna oust you. It's just the way it works, you know, and whether they agree with him or not, whether they like him or not, whether they agree with the policies that he has or not. It's terrible. It's terrible, especially when you have these rural areas, because see, Texas is such a huge state. You know, the rural areas in the state have as much power as the majority of people who live in the
big
cities.
city. And so, I think it should be that way.
That's the balance of power is off when you got somebody who lives in a freaking barn has more power than the whole city of Houston, where there's millions of people.
No, the same power as Houston, not more.
Yeah, well, that's that doesn't balance out. You know what I mean? That's
no, it does.
Shouldn't be.
You don't agree with it, but it does balance out. That's
it
why
doesn't.
Republicans it balances out.
It doesn't. When one guy's vote in the middle of nowhere in Texas has more power than 1 million people in the city, that's not right.
That's right. Because you shouldn't allow a big city to, just because it's a big city, to be able to overpower the wants and needs of the people of their you know, the constituents in their areas. Like it's fair. Like it's really is. Like
not fair. You don't like it. They're the minority of the people. Like it's crazy because, you know, Texas is a red state because of those rural areas, and the people in the cities tend to be Democratic. You know,
but that's the part. Exactly, that's the part that you don't like. That's the part you can't get over, is the fact you just don't like it. But it is fair, because it's just because you're a big city doesn't mean that you know better than the people who, like you got more right over where you live, but you shouldn't have more right over where other people live.
Well, those people in the rural areas have right over the city, the people that's in the cities. So your argument don't work with that. They don't know about the city. They don't know about the people that over here. They don't know
Well,
about my life.
just get along with the program. Conservatives are better people.
Okay.
Like you need to get on the right train, and like stop keep you like you're on the wrong train, but you keep riding the one because you done got comfortable there.
Yeah. Let's read some more comments. It says, Mitch, leave now. We're sick of him. Another one that says, Mitch McConnell needs to step down now. Don't wait till next year. November is one of the worst senator. So him stepping down now wouldn't mean anything anyways. I mean, they still have
No,
to
they
have
say
an
next
election
this year.
to cover. Yeah, but still, it's the end of the year is when it's going to happen. But it wouldn't even matter. It still has to be an election. So him stepping down now wouldn't make any difference.
Exactly, and like the majority, like the thing is giving people time to realize, all right, look, don't vote for me, don't put me in again for the 30th time. That
And I want to mention again, it's voting day on Tuesday here in Texas. So, if you want to have an impact, you want to do something, go out there. And these are the times where you want to vote. The presidential election doesn't have as much impact on your life as the local elections do.
But
the media likes to cover.
Isn't it for the primaries of the presidential? What else is being
There's
voted for Tuesday?
there's lots of other races that are going on. Lots of other offices that are happening right now on this one that's coming on Tuesday. It's not just the
I need you to run
primary.
In one of these. I need you to run in one of these.
Yeah. Well, the amount of money it takes to get into there is crazy, and it's costing more and more. And you got to be able to. Shit, I can't pay my bills. I mean, I can, but I'm struggling. Let's read some more. It says, "Dude was pure evil. He can't go soon enough." It says, "Down with the corrupt lawmakers." Another one that says, "McConnell came into the Senate as a moderate. Shows what money in politics does to morals of politicians. I've never been in favor of term limits, but am now questioning that practice." Yeah, so he was supposedly a moderate or whatever, So yeah, he moved further and further right as his tenure went by.
No, he's been a Republican the whole time.
Yeah, he was. You can be a Republican and be a moderate Republican.
No, I know that. That's why I'm like, okay, because it sounds like you're saying like he moved more and more right, but I don't believe he has. Like he's so flip-floppy.
He clearly has moved. He's clearly moved further and further to the right during his tenure.
I think that y'all feel like that because the liberals have moved so far left. They're so extreme left that it seems that they're way more far right than before. Like there's a lot, like if you say go back to the 90s, there's a lot more Democrats that would agree more with the Republican style of today.
Yeah.